West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Thursday, October 16th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. Sitting live in studio with me, Vic Vela, 5-time Edward R. Murrow Award winner. No one's ever going to give me an award for this show. What is it like to get an award? Do they call you? Did you go to... Did you give a speech? Did you have to thank people?
Yeah,
I want to thank my mom.
I had my Sally Field moments.
You
you like
love
me.
me.
You really like me. Yeah. It's beautiful.
But was it an actual award ceremony?
Oh yeah, it's special when people give you something, but at the same time, I mean, what matters is the actual work. What matters are these conversations. What matters is actually trying to make a difference in someone's life. Like when I talk about addiction, that matters. When I share stories of people who went through hell with alcoholism or drug addiction, opioids, cocaine, mental health issues, right? And they share their stories, and those stories then become a survival guide for someone else who's going through the same thing right now and providing hope. Well, that matters more than awards.
You know what's kind of intriguing about your recovery is I've known lots of guys that have gone through recovery, and they seem kind of, I don't want to say permanently damaged.
Oh,
maybe, but you are a guy. Corbliss is laughing. Corbliss, you're not one of them. But I'm like, dude, I would have never known.
Well,
you're right. You seem fine.
Look, I've killed a lot of brain cells that aren't coming back, man. It's actually, I just went through a health issue having to do with some of that stuff where I forget stuff all the time. Like I will be sitting, I need to text my friend that stuff. What is my friend's name?
That's right? Kind of age, isn't it?
Well,
how old are you?
I'm 48. I'm not 88.
You're 48.
Yeah.
So you look younger than me. You're sharper than me.
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't.
Go on.
I did not do what you did. So I'm sitting here going, yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, it's called recovery. I'm also 10 years removed, right? If you talk to me like when I was just 6 years or 6 months removed, right? Like it does a number. Trust me, there are studies that show that I was a heavy cocaine user, and the permanent damage that it does to the brain, well, it is permanent, right? Like you don't get those things back. And I think that's why you might be referring to a lot of people who might be a little space cadet-y who are in recovery, and God love us because we used to self-medicate those problems away, but now we don't do that. Yeah.
I'm just impressed, man.
I appreciate
Sharp.
that. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Having fun. All right. We are Vic Vela's co-hosting today. He's going to be with me for the entirety of the show. Feel free to give us a call, 303-696-1971. Tony in Littleton. Let's go to the phone lines, and then we'll get to Blake. Right. You want to take a call?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, Tony in Littleton, you're on with Jeff and Vic. Good morning. We lost him. Was that self-induced? Okay.
That's too bad.
Call back, Tony.
Yep.
We'll get you back on. But feel free to join the conversation. 3674. Jeff, I got my aunt listening in Toledo. Well, good morning.
Hey.
Toledo, Ohio. That's awesome. We're becoming a
home of the
national
Rockets.
Show. Is that
Toledo Rockets?
I thought it was the Mud Hens.
I don't know who the Mud Heads are.
The Mud Hens. Mud Heads. The Toledo Mud Heads. I thought that was the Toledo Mud Hens. I thought that was one of their...
What is a mud hen as opposed to a regular hen?
Yeah.
We gotta find
would
that
you
out.
say that on air, or did you just say that in my ears? I can't tell without him.
Oh, I said that in your ear, but the Toledo Mud Hens is their AAA baseball team.
There we go.
Who are the Toledo Rockets? Is that the women's basketball team?
University of Toledo. I think it's the Rockets.
Okay.
This is fascinating.
There you go. Good radio at 7 in the morning. All right, now it's time. We're going to finally get it going with Blake Olson, news and comment.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Very good, Vic. It is the Rockets. Division I football and basketball, University. Good Thursday morning, 51 and clear, expecting a high of 70 today. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, the RTD Police Department now has a new section dedicated to investigating crimes. Detectives can look into criminal activity on RTD property, streamlining investigations that previously involved multiple jurisdictions. RTD Chief of Police Steve Martingano says that the Bureau detectives will investigate a range of crimes, including theft, trespassing, weapons violation, and controlled substances offenses. The Schumer shutdown is in day 16. He's worried about a primary challenge from AOC. What does AOC think about that? She'll answer that. No, wait a minute. Bernie Sanders will answer that.
But are you saying that Senator Schumer should not be worried about a primary challenge from you?
I mean,
All right.
no.
Let me jump in on this one. This is what
we're talking about.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
This is what we're
you have a
talking
country
about.
that is falling apart. We had a housing crisis, a healthcare crisis, an education crisis, massive income and wealth inequality, a corrupt campaign finance system, and the media says, "Oh, you're going to run. What are you going to run for?" Nobody cares. So run more towards
Nobody cares. It's the House Speaker and President Trump and the Vice President saying it.
All right.
Pardon?
Well, of course, they're saying it to deflect attention away from the real issue.
Exactly.
And here, let me tell you what the real issue is. Let's see if CNN talks about it. We're living in the richest country in the history of the world, right? All right, you tell me why we're the only nation not to guarantee health care to all people, the only nation not to guarantee paid family and medical leave, why we have a $7.25 an hour minimum wage, why we have 800,000 people sleeping out on the street.
Because of people like you. They were on CNN last night, and great answer from AOC, Bernie Sanders. And then there's a student named Rohan Naval, who was outstanding, stands up and embarrasses Bernie.
How do you think this shutdown reflects on Chuck Schumer's leadership?
Well, I think it reflects more on Mike Johnson's leadership and President Trump's leadership. This is a leadership which said, it's okay to give well, how do you feel? You tell me. Think it's a good idea to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the richest people in the country and then make massive cuts to health care for working class people?
I think Chuck Schumer has voted for continuing resolutions 13 times in the last 4 years, and he has the opportunity to vote for one again, but he's refusing to come to the table.
Well, I think, look.
Rohan just kills it. Oh, Bernie. DJT says he plans to send federal troops into more U.S. cities. He says thousands of violent criminals have been arrested in his recent deployments. He also said his administration will be going into other cities to combat crime, and San Francisco is on his list. Hamas says it has returned all the dead hostages that it can to Israel. The ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas called on them to turn over 28 deceased hostages within 72 hours, but they have only returned 9 bodies so far. Hamas says it would take significant efforts to recover the remaining bodies from the destruction in Gaza. All right, this is how you do it. Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, talking about the debt in his state.
If you look at our state, if you take all the debt that the state has accumulated over its 180-year history, just since I've been governor, by the end of this fiscal year, we will have retired 50% of the state's total historical debt over 180 years. Now, part of that is we did an accelerated program we'll go in, we'll buy the bonds at a discount, we'll retire them, we save a lot of money on interest. So it's been beneficial for taxpayers, but we now have the lowest per capita debt of any state in the United States of America.
And that is how you win. And the great news of the morning.
A Christian revival across the country. Bible sales increasing over 40% since 2022. Religion app downloads surging nearly 80%. That increase since 2019. And Christian music Spotify streams up 50% from 2019.
And that's mostly young people. That is great. Blue Jays over the Mariners in Game 3 of the ALCS last night, 13-4. Football tonight, the Bengals play host to the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. And yes, great job by Vic. Once again, Toledo is the Rockets, the University of Toledo, and the Mud Hens, the minor league baseball team, as Adam mentioned, AAA. 51 in Parker, 50 in Arvada, 53 in Denver. The Jeff and Billy show continues with Vic in the seat for Billy. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast still might have a light shower into early Thursday. Otherwise, skies mostly cloudy. Temperatures early on will be in the lower 50s. An early morning shower, then sunshine for Thursday. Highs going to be in the middle and upper 60s. Lows low 40s and clear Thursday night. Sunny, mainly dry, pleasant for Friday and into the weekend. Friday and Saturday, highs will be in the mid-60s with lows upper 30s, low 40s. Back in the mid-70s Sunday. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Bill's out sitting in the studio with me as Vic Vela, a 5-time Edward R. Murrow award-winning journalist. He's a podcast host, educator, public speaker, fierce advocate for addiction and mental health recovery. Spent 10 years with Colorado Public Radio. That's probably why you recognize the voice. All right, so how progressive are you? Are you... Are you deep saying Badesh, card-carrying member of the Socialist Party?
I can picture you on a date saying that, like just on a first date, right. And that's your very first question. Yeah, I love that. Right. I could totally picture you doing that. Man, I think I'm going to be 100% honest. I think I am where a lot of people are. There's some issues where they're a little left. There's some issues where they're a little right. I personally think that Democrats and Republicans are screwing this country. And I have no faith in either party to lead anymore.
What is it that drives you crazy? Is it the special interests that is in politics? The way the system's set up? I mean, what would you like to see?
I mean, well, where do you begin? I mean, this is only a 4-hour show, first of all. I think where Democrats... Look, I come from a family. We talked about my family earlier in the first hour. Many Democrats in my family, hardcore Democrats going back generations, right? These are people who idolize JFK and LBJ and FDR, right? At a time when, I remember asking my grandma, Grandma, why are we Democrats when I was a little kid? And she said, because Democrats are for the poor and for working people. And that was true for a long time. I don't know if that's true anymore. I think, first of all, I went in 1984 when I was in second grade. We held a school-wide election between Reagan and Mondale. 2 people voted for Mondale, me and my best friend, by the way. I'm very proud of that vote to this day, Jeff.
Might have been the only 2 in Colorado at that point, too.
Yeah, I remember. Anyway, but times have changed. I think that, who do you see on MSNBC nowadays? It's always some Harvard-educated, elite, white liberal who has never held a lunch pail in their life, right? My grandpa was a coal miner. My grandma picked beets in Boulder County. My dad worked... my mom worked, we work, right? And there was a time when, Democrats represented working families. There was a time when, Democrats talked about actually helping people instead of talking about identity issues every darn day. Look, I check a lot of identity boxes, right? Like, you know this. Like, you want to go toe to toe with me on identity, bring it on, because I will tell you that I'm gay, I'm Hispanic, right? We could go down the list. But I think those very talking points that Democrats have been talking about for the last few years or longer have turned people off, and they've certainly turned off independents. The constant scolding of people. It's like, what? You used the wrong pronoun? I'm canceling you. You're fired, right? Like, you know, I use the analogy of the boy who cried wolf, the old story, where, for those who don't remember, it's, you know, where the boy is alone and he cries out wolf to the townspeople, and they all come rushing to help him. But after a while, he just started doing it for the attention, and they stopped coming. And then one day an actual wolf shows up, and nobody showed up, right? That's what a lot of these, you know, when you call everything racist, when you call everything transphobic, when you call everything sexist, then people become unfazed to it. And it does a disservice when actual racism happens, when actual hate happens, right? We just become so desensitized to it, and it's built resentment. Mark Maron, one of my favorite podcast hosts, he's also in recovery. He said it best, I think. He's like, the left has annoyed people into fascism. And what I mean by that is that, you know, people have become so annoyed by Democrats and the left that they're more than happy to vote for Trump and hold their nose and do that because they're tired of being scolded every day. My gosh. I mean, can we get back to talking about lunch pail issues? Focus on healthcare, focus on, jobs and the economy, focus on the things that matter, right? Instead, it was always this constant barrage of, DEI initiatives that, I think most people, Jeff, are good people, and most people just try to treat others with respect, no matter where you live. Right? Is there actual racism? You're darn right there is. But I think that's in the minority. I think most people really try and get along with their neighbor and really care about them, right? But when the left goes around scolding you over every little thing, when you're by and large a good guy, you're like, that party is not talking to me. It's berating me. That's the problem with Democrats.
I think that's fair because, the most impactful ad during the last cycle was that she's for they, them ad. I don't know if you saw
it.
That.
The left hated it, but it was very effective.
And I think it was effective not because conservatives are sitting around anti-trans. It's not something that goes on in our minds during the day,
right.
But it showcased that they were just so wildly out of touch, right? Like you're dealing with skyrocketing inflation, and somehow even what's occupying even an ounce of Kamala Harris's mind is sex change operations for illegal immigrants. And you're just sitting there going, really? Out of all the stuff that we're facing, that's somehow... So you could tell she had just been so captured by a small ideological activist unit within the progressive movement that you're talking about things that nobody else thinks about.
Yeah, and I think that does a disservice to the actual debate because there's a real, honest, thoughtful conversation that can be had around transgender issues, right? But it became this litmus test where if you are a parent and you have a girl competing in high school sports, and you're just questioning whether it's fair for a transgender person to enter, you're automatically vilified. You're automatically a transphobe. How dare you bring that up? So it creates this chilling effect. Yeah. When I'm sorry, there's a reasonable conversation around that, right? There's a reasonable conversation around how young is too young to get gender-affirming care. I think it's great that it's available to people, especially to adults. I get the thing that drives me crazy about conservatives is when you guys always try and tell people what to do in their own dang lives. I don't understand. It drives me crazy. You crucify Democrats for doing the same thing, but then you guys do the same thing, right? Both parties are just a pox on both houses. But I just think that the Democrats have very little self-awareness of how unpopular they are, right? And that's the problem. Even if they are, let's say the shutdown and healthcare and the ACA premiums, let's say that is an actual winning issue for Democrats. We don't know yet. It's too early. The problem is that they're so unpopular that people don't go gravitating to them. They may agree with them on this particular one, but they're not ready to embrace the party.
Tell me why Democrats have so much control in Colorado then. I don't know if you saw the Magellan strategy poll on this, where ICE has a higher favorability than Jared Polis in the state of Colorado.
I did not see that poll. I'd have to read the poll before I comment on it, but yeah, sure.
But the general gist was Democrats are wildly unpopular. Let's vote for Democrats again. Why is Colorado so blue?
I think it's a couple of reasons. One, because Republicans are so much worse, right? I mean, that's the problem. It's like you're darned if you do, darned if you don't. Go with the devil you know instead of the actual devil, right? I'm sorry, Jeff, but I just think that Republicans have just become such not even an option anymore. That the only
Why is that?
Well, because of you hitched your wagons to Trump. And look, let me back up a little bit. It's actually interesting. When I covered politics for many years, I went to a lot of political rallies during the Clinton-Trump race. I went to Clinton rallies. I went to Trump rallies. I went to Bernie Sanders rallies. I talked to so many Trump voters. And first of all, I hate the way the media caricatures Trump voters. I think it's disgusting, and I think it is deplorable because a lot of Trump voters are actually just regular Americans who like the guy. And to make fun of them really upset me as both a journalist and someone who follows politics. And when I would talk to people at Trump rallies, I'd be like, why do you support Trump? Jeff, so many of them would tell me, well, I actually liked Bernie initially, but there's no way the Democrats are going to let Bernie win, right? So I'm going with Trump because we need change. People are so thirsty for change, and they're so fed up with institutionalized Democrats and institutionalized Republicans that they are willing to kind of go to that extreme of either Bernie or Trump, people who don't normally talk like your mainstream candidates, right? And I think that's what I meant by it. And the reason why Republicans aren't an option for a lot of Coloradans, well, a lot of them aren't even from Colorado. Many folks move here from states like California or the Midwest, which tend to be a little bluer. The mountains, right? The hippie kind of culture has really taken over Colorado. Jeff, it wasn't that long ago when Bush won Colorado. It wasn't that long ago when Mitt Romney was getting a decent percentage of the vote in Colorado. That ain't happening anymore.
14 was the last good Republican year in Colorado when I think they took the Senate. But since then, it's been a decade. It's been a decade.
The suburbs used to be full of Republicans in Colorado.
Now they're actually, you had a 20-point swing in Douglas County from Mitt Romney to Heidi Knoll.
Yeah.
20 points. That's not just like a candidate preference difference. That is a significant change. So Colorado suburbs, highly educated. We're the second highest college educated state in the nation. Yet they look at the Democrat Party and continue to vote in that direction. Now, I'm not quite sure that I believe what Deep Singh Badesha said on Tuesday, which is that they're itching to become more progressive, because when they do, whether it's Elizabeth Epps or Tim Hernandez, they tend to get ushered out because they become raging anti-Semites, which is, kind of, Democrats aren't quite willing to embrace that. But it's an interesting state because we elect pale, male, and stale. Mike Johnston, Michael Bennett, Phil Weiser, Jared Polis, John Hickenlooper. They all wear jeans. They all wear the little, blue rustic shirt. There's like a mold here that Colorado elects, but then voters complain about the Democrats and don't want to give Republicans any options. What is it about the Republicans?
I think
from
if
your
Republicans stuck to talking about fiscal matters, Jeff, every time there's a ballot, every time there's a question on the ballot around tax issues, conservatives dominate that issue at the polls here in Colorado. For as blue as we are, we do not like big tax increases. For as blue as we are, Tabor is very popular among a lot of people, right? When we got those checks back a year or so ago, that was a big deal. That's a lot of money for an individual, right?
Jared was happy to send a letter along with it.
That's a really good point, because how the tide has turned around that. So what conservatives fail to understand is they do have winning issues. But when you go and talk about these culture issues all the time, that's where you lose Colorado voters. The culture doesn't line up with where the state is politically. And so if I would love to see a Republican candidate who says, guys, I ain't going to talk about gay issues. I ain't going to talk about abortion.
That was Joe, who ran for Senate. I can't remember his name. Part of the problem was he just showed up kind of out of nowhere.
But if they just stuck to issues that matter to people, might be better results. But let's be honest.
Joe Day.
But the numbers just aren't in your favor.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's a demographics issue, but I also think it's an education issue.
But I also don't think it's good for any state to have a super majority,
right, of total control. It's because you want to talk about social issues. My goodness, every time the state capitol gets together, it's House Bill 1312, for instance. Will criminalize you if you misgender somebody, and I know that's a bit of an exaggeration on what that law did, but the left seems perfectly happy to have taxpayer-funded abortions. So they're willing to push the social issues, and maybe to your point that the voters don't seem to want to penalize them for it, no matter how progressive the social issues want to be. But I go down and I testify at the state capitol. I go to these rallies, and I feel like I'm facing something that is much bigger than just preference over parties or even personality. It's an education issue from my perspective, that if you grow up and go to government-run schools, and what I mean by that are not charters, not public schools that would include charter schools, but actual brick-and-mortar government-run education, you never really hear the conservative worldview or what the principles are that make up the conservative worldview, right? So the reason we want limited government is not because we necessarily, want to shrink a government and not have those services. It's because we believe that there's a system to this world. And when you have strong families, for instance, mom and a dad, raising kids, male and female, pouring those values into children, it contributes to human flourishing. I think there's a lot of studies that showcase that. So the ultimate strength of a strong, healthy society comes from the quality of the families that exist there. We want those families not to be burdened with high taxes. We think that families do a better job raising kids than the government's going to do. And the government oftentimes steps in when you have brokenness that takes place at the family level. So we think there's a God. We think he set up the world a particular way. We think if we abide by that, it leads to human flourishing. I think we both want human flourishing. We see the government as having to step in when there's brokenness that takes place further upstream. Does that make sense?
So why can't all candidates talk like that instead of, hey, let's talk about cats at Jeffco schools? I mean, it's just, come on, man. Like, some of the things that you all talk about, I think just really turns people off who might be sympathetic to a lot of the things you're talking about. That's the problem. Talk about those issues on a human level, and I think you'd see those numbers tighten up.
Vic Vela live in studio. Text messages coming in. Holly from Lakewood saying Vic's a very likable liberal.
Oh, the likable liberal. It's
Glad
like a
to see
golden
they
book.
still exist, but you guys are like unicorns out there now.
the likable little liberal, the golden book story.
Vic Vela is live in studio with us. Feel free to give us a call. Frank will get to you in a second. We're having a ton of fun this morning. All right, so for many of us, it's happening. Your hair's thinning, your crown's disappearing. Maybe hair loss has you feeling your identity's lost altogether. Well, I got good news for you. It's an incredible yet simple one-day treatment that starts growing your own natural hair the very next day, and it's guaranteed to grow for life. It's the Advanced FUE from Advanced Hair. Look, we've all seen the pills and lotions that come with monthly subscriptions. They help retain what you have, but what if what you want is your own natural hair permanently in specific areas? From Advanced Hair's state-of-the-art facilities to world-class Dr. Tanya Pauls, it's not maybe your hair will regrow. It's guaranteed that your new hair will grow. You get to decide how much, how thick, and where. It's why Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver. For your free consultation, $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Give them a call at 720-459-HAIR. 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. Advancedhair.com. We'll continue. Phone lines filling up. Text messages hot. We'll get to these next. 1514 saying, Vic, you are spot on. There you go. It's on both sides. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS.
Wake up, Denver. There's no better place to start your morning than IHOP, where the pancakes are fluffy, the coffee is hot, and the smiles are endless. Wednesday, October 22nd, join Jeff and Bill as they broadcast their show live from IHOP at 9565 South University Boulevard in Highlands Ranch. You're officially invited to be part of the excitement. Come grab your favorite breakfast and watch the Jeff and Bill Show in action from 6 to 10 a.m. Don't forget to try the special Jeff and Bill breakfast. Pancakes, any style eggs, and crispy bacon, all for just $7.10. It's a deal as good as their hot takes. All they need is you. Bring your appetite, bring your friends, and kick off your day with great food and great conversation. See you Wednesday, October 22nd at IHOP.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Bill's out this week. He'll be back Monday. Don't worry, but we're having lots of fun with some big names here in Colorado. Ted Trimpa, Patty Calhoun, Deep Singh Badesha. CityCast is on tomorrow. Vic Vela, 10 years, Colorado Public Radio, 5-time Edward R. Murrow Award winner. Having a great conversation. Appreciate it. Text messages are great. Phones starting to come in. Let's go to Frank in Evergreen. Good morning, Frank. You're on with Jeff and Vic.
Yeah, good morning, Jeff. Great week this week. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
You get kudos for engaging your guests when they say stupid stuff. I really appreciate it. And I hope and wish you would do the same when Billy gets back. Because you let Billy get off on a lot of stuff, and that's not right. Anyway, to my point. Vic, I hear a lot of Democrats talk this way where they talk about their ancestors and how they worked hard to get where they are and all that stuff. And then you come along, people like you come along, and then you basically have, at least stumbled initially, but now sounds like you're on track again. And you failed miserably. But instead of accepting responsibility for your failure, because you had everything, your ancestors did everything right for you, you're blaming our country, our citizens, people like me who don't want to pay more money to pay for your health care. So why don't you just take responsibility and not try to blame our country and our political system and blame Republicans mainly for your failures?
Do you think that's a fair assessment of where you stand on stuff, Vic?
Are you sure you want to be my spokesman?
Yes.
I think, look, failed miserably. Wow. I appreciate engaging conversations and I appreciate questions. And Jeff and I were just talking a few minutes ago about you have to have a thick skin when you talked about this stuff. If, I was struggling for a very long time in life. I was addicted to cocaine. I was doing meth. I was drinking every single day. I was throwing my life away and causing damage in all facets of my life, right? A lot of people don't come back from that. Jeff, you had close friends who never came back from that. I've had close friends and family. I think a lot of listeners out there who are listening right now, whether they agree with me politically or not, or philosophically or not, knows someone in their family or a good friend who has struggled with addiction. And I decided one day to say the most courageous 3 words I've ever said in my life. I need help. And thank God I did that, because the next morning a friend took me to a recovery meeting, and I've been in recovery ever since. And so what I try and do now is I try and give a little piece of my recovery to those who are still struggling, in hopes that my story can help someone who was in my shoes at one point, right? So,
but you still think that I should work harder to pay for your health care?
That's not what I think, and that's not what I said, sir. As a matter of fact,
well, that's the reality of it. I mean, somebody's got to pay for it.
Well, I think the larger issue when it comes to when we talk about the issue of Obamacare, and I was just talking to Jeff about this in this current debate, is that there's always a repeal from the conservatives, and there's always a repeal effort from Republicans, but there's never a replacement. If we just get rid of Obamacare right now, the whole healthcare system would fall apart because there's no replacement in place. And I think that's exactly why Trump couldn't get
the replacement is to carry on the way your parents and grandparents taught you, and take responsibility for your own life, your own costs in life. We all have costs, and your decisions you make, and not try to blame Republicans or even Democrats in some cases, our government, white people, whatever, for you not picking up the ball and running with it that your grandparents and parents gave you. That's a simple replacement right there.
Well,
I understand in the process there has to be some everything is a transition, right? Now, for the last 50 years of my life, we have been moving down this socialism, communism route. Now we're kind of maybe turn the corner and go back a little bit. And there's got to be a transition, because there's a lot of people who just have no ability to manage their own life because they have been so cared for by our system. And there needs to be a transition. I agree with that. But we need to get back to the point where people take responsibility for their own life.
I appreciate the question. Let me just add one more thing.
Right.
Just
go ahead.
I think my parents and my grandparents and my ancestors would be very proud of me today.
Well, and I think you've done a good job demonstrating how you can take control. But Frank does bring up the point that we're at a spot now where you do have to tax people in order to provide those Obamacare subsidies. But the challenge is, Frank, it's much bigger than just repealing Obamacare. I think that healthcare itself is too murky. We don't know costs associated. It's not really a true free market. If we try to go back to the way things were just prior to Obamacare, I don't think that system was all that great as well. So I think part of the challenge that we find ourselves in, Frank, is that it would require a pretty significant overhaul of the entire system. Do you think we could ever get back to that?
Well, obviously I don't have the answer to that, and there's been so many smart people, including you, Jeff, who have mentioned that and don't have the answer either. But I do know that the answer is not to just dump more money at it and tell people we'll take care of you no matter what. The cradle to grave concept, that cradle to grave concept has got to go away. And I believe in my heart, it won't happen in my lifetime because I'll probably worm food by the time it happens. I believe in my heart that the younger kids, and my kids included, recognize that this cradle to grave thing's got to end. And that's why they all voted for Trump. And, Trump is not a Republican, traditional Republican. He's a populist. He's not even a conservative. And people throughout both parties. Now, Trump had to run in a party, so he ran as a Republican. But he is not a Republican, and you can hate, and people can hate him all they want for being a Republican, but he's not a Republican, not a traditional Republican. So I don't have the answer for you, Jeff, because it's obviously a very complex question. Yeah. But I do know that most things can be solved in capitalism with supply and demand. Yeah. Not everything. We still have to have a safety net, but most things can be solved, and unless we start that journey down that path, we're never going to get there.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it's just going to continue to get more and more expensive and more regulated. Frank Evergreen, thanks for the call. His line is open at 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Not fair, I think, in his description of you, because you have in many ways had to overcome some of the stuff that's some of the greatest challenges I think a human being can come over, and what you had to do. So I didn't think that was a fair description.
Oh, and it's okay, Jeff. I have been in the back of ambulances after overdosing. I have had drug deals gone bad where I've had guns pointed at my head. Like, I can handle a tough question.
Well,
if someone says to me that I'm a failure, that ain't nothing. I got news for you. So I think, and also look, if we're going to have these conversations, if you're someone who has a microphone and has a platform, there are going to be a lot of people who don't like what you have to say, and you have to respect that. Now, you hope that it doesn't get too personal, right? And I think that's how we try to talk about these things. Jeff, you and I would not agree philosophically on the role government should play in healthcare.
Correct.
That's okay, because reasonable people can have those conversations.
But I just want to make it crystal clear. You're absolutely not a failure. You have overcome tremendous odds, and it's an honor to have you in the show.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll continue. Speaking of great guys, did you see that award that Dan Kaplan had? $200 million award he won.
You're kidding.
$200 million.
$200 million.
Yeah. Do you want to know who he represented? You remember that little girl who fell off the ride at the Glenwood Caverns?
Okay.
And then fell down and died?
I remember
right?
that.
Okay. So initial negotiations on a settlement, right? Dan discovers that that the company had a workaround for the alarms that were going off, that they trained their employees. So it was an official procedure that when the alarms were going off that the seatbelts weren't on, you pressed this button, that button, this button, cleared it out. So you could run the ride when the alarms were going off, that the seatbelts weren't on. He discovered it. It was mostly a punitive damage, but it sends a clear message to everybody, like anyone operating any amusement park, that if you have those workarounds, if you're not putting safety of people first, you're going to pay a really big price. Dan Caplis Law, proud sponsor of the Jeff and Bill Show, former seminarian, dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Caplis Law, the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law, a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S Law.com. Jeff, Vic, Vela continues. You're listening to 710 KNUS. Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Bill's out this week. He'll be back Monday, co-hosting with me today. Vic Vela, award-winning journalist. Let's go to the phone lines. Kevin Littleton. Good morning, Kevin. You're on with Jeff and Vic.
Good morning, Jeff. Vic, how are you?
Hey.
So let's talk about insurance. I'm going to say this right off the bat. Barack Obama, when he got elected, spent all, if not most, of his political capital putting a wedge in a fragile healthcare system that everybody around the world, if they had money and got cancer or needed a heart or a kidney or a lung or something, would fly here and get it done. So you talk about all these like misnomers, like you own a nonprofit, that's your job, and you can't afford health care without a subsidy. If that was me, my dad would tell me to get a job and do your nonprofit as a hobby on the side. Now, having said that, we talk about insurance.
Kevin, hold on, Kevin. While I understand that position, too, also, if I was out there trying to shop, it's wildly. I've been on Cobra before, and it's crazy how much a family has to pay. A family of six like us.
Crazy.
I mean, I'd be working 5 jobs to cover it. So it's expensive.
But look, this is what insurance is: risk management. Okay, that's all it is. So if you can't afford going to the doctor and that kind of stuff, you used to be able to, before Obamacare, buy catastrophic coverage. You used to be able to buy, you could still buy accident plans, hospital indemnity plans. They're all cash plans where they pay you money if something happens to you, including cancer. So you can buy all that stuff for about as much as you buy at Starbucks every day on your way to work. So all that stuff used to be out there, and you could afford it. Now, if you take a 22-year-old kid who has a car, maybe he's a bartender, or not that great a job, car insurance, if he gets in a car accident, maybe he's on mom and dad's insurance. Great, I don't have a problem with that. But he has coverage if he needs to get medical treatment. Maybe he goes up to Loveland and skis or snowboards, and he's worried about breaking a leg. For about $30 a month, he can buy an accident plan that'll fix his leg when it breaks.
Kevin, we're up against the end of the hour. I want to give Vic a chance to respond. Vic, we got about 20 seconds.
Man, I just think that this debate is really important to have, and I may not agree with some of the callers, but I appreciate the conversation, because here's the issue. We were just talking about this during the break. Obamacare is the only show in town. And if you get rid of it, and if you get rid of the subsidies without replacing it with something else, it's going to be catastrophic. So we could talk all we want about how much we hate it. Where is the replacement? And the other side has had years to come up with one, and they got nothing.
All right. What's your response? Join the conversation, 303-696-1971. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710, KNUS.